Dudes, it's Gaz, and welcome back to another Warframe video. So, today we're updating the Zombie Ash loadout I made last year for 2025. With the loadout we've got today, you'll be doing some really ridiculously gross red crits, and also shredding max level enemies in record time. As far as some updates between this build and last year's build, we've got a ton of extremely power-crept new arcanes and items that make us even more powerful than before. So let's get right into it. But before we do, make sure to sub this channel. We do daily Warframe video uploads, build videos, news videos, discussion videos, strategy guides, all that kind of stuff. You're in the right place for Warframe content. I'll be covering that big dev stream on Friday with the infested liches, so keep an eye out for the overview video as well. Okay, so Zombie Ash. If you have not watched the previous Zombie Ash video, don't worry, I'll link it in the description. But yeah, the idea of this build is going to be minimal thought required, basically. We're trying to have a build that's infinitely sustainable at high levels and also very good for shredding high-level enemies, like instantly pretty much. But yeah, when I say minimal effort, I mean that we don't have to actually worry about your energy bar. If you are playing this build on Ash, you will not have to think about your energy bar at all. Like, just pretend your energy bar doesn't exist. As long as you have Nourish active, you will be able to cast your Invis. And that's pretty much the only abilities Ash even has is Invisibility and his Helmet for me. So, yeah, the idea of this, though, is just to make, basically using Ash's buffs to make weapons like the Torid Incarnon, or the Dual Tox Incarnon for that matter, shredding enemies at really, like, insta-speed, basically. So, now that we've established what this build is about, and it can kill level 10,000s in, like, one bullet, pretty much, let's go ahead and talk about what has changed on the build, and also how the build's going to work. So, it can definitely shred level 10,000, as you see. We were able to sneak this level 10,000 in before weekly reset a couple days ago. But yeah, it's really good for killing these guys. These max level Thrax will die in, you can kill the trash adds in like 1 tick of damage. The Thrax probably take about 2 or 3 ticks of damage to kill. But yeah, still really easy to kill them. So, here we are in the sim here. And as far as what the idea of this build is, as you look at my bottom right corner of my energy bar, I can cast my Nourish ability and my Smoke Screen with my energy bar. And as we just sit around, looks like Energy Nexus might not be working right now. Once Energy Nexus actually wakes up, we can sustain our energy just by walking around pretty much. The way that Nourish works is that it multiplies all energy regeneration sources, and our Smoke Shadow ability lasts for a portion of time, scaling off duration. So, as you can see, my energy bar is back to full. I cast my Smoke Shadow, and I've gotten the energy to recast Smoke Shadow in those few seconds from doing literally nothing. So, it's pretty straightforward and easy. Okay, but as far as weapons and changes we've got here, we got the Torid Incarnon. In my previous video, I used the Dual Tox Incarnon, which is totally fine to use, but I did want to change it up a little bit and go over some of the new mods we can use in the Torid. So once we go to Torid Incarnon form, we can just pretty much shred them really fast. And with the changes to Blast procs now make enemies explode on death, which is pretty fun. Now, you can still run the Corrosive Cold build from my Zombie Ash video from last year if you prefer. But Blast procs are pretty fun to make enemies explode. I would say the damage of the Corrosive Cold build is probably a little bit better technically, but overall, the Corrosive Blast build is just kind of fun to have because it does make enemies explode a little bit as well, which is kind of nice. So, as far as that, and also, the other thing that's changed too, the Smita Kavat is no longer the meta. I know a lot of people ask me about this. Smita Kavat is no longer meta. The Charm ability no longer doubles loot. What does double loot nowadays is going to be the Resourceful Retriever mod, okay? So if you don't have this mod, you are not going to have doubled up loot. That's why I always recommend Beast Companions over Robot Companions. So yeah, those are some of the things that changed. Now, as far as the modding situation and what's changed as well, again, the video from last year was like a year old at this point. So in the meantime, some things have changed. As far as Archon shards, I've got 3 Archon shards for parkour velocity, as Ash does not need that much power strength. And duration doesn't really help him that much because he's only got 8 seconds base duration of his Invis too. Ash and Viz buff win DE. But something that might look a little bit weird to you, I've got actually 2 green Tau shards for corrosive stacks. Now, I have an excess of green Tau shards. I would not recommend that most players do this. But what is the purpose of green Tau shards for corrosive stacks? Usually nothing. But the thing is, with this, since I have an excess of green Tau shards, this will give us 16 procs total, which is overkill. You need to have 14 procs to fully remove enemy armor in Warframe, but here's the thing. On certain enemies like Acolytes and bosses, This lets you go above their normal corrosive stack cap. So with these 2 shards here, this is basically only meant for acolytes and bosses. We would go to 10 corrosive procs on an acolyte if the corrosive procs come from us. It is extremely unnecessary. It does not even do anything for other enemies. They get like 16 corrosive procs and they lose all their armor at 14. But I just want to point that out. Since we are having a lot more shards nowadays, I've got green corrosive Tau shards on Ashe, as I don't want to be Seeking Shuriken. Seeking Shuriken is way too inconsistent, way too slow. But here's the build right here. It is very similar to the previous build, but we've changed the arcanes. I'm no longer using the dual Toxis for my DPS, but of course that will still be possible. We got the new Arcane Crepuscular. It's so perfect with Ashe because Ashe's Smoke Shadow Augment gives you crit chance while invisible, and Arcane Crepuscular gives you crit damage while invisible. So we've got crit chance and crit damage, which buffs our Torid really, really nicely. Additionally, since our Torid is going to be mod for Corrosive and Blast, we've got Nourish on here to throw Viral on all of our weapons. So we can have Viral Corrosive Blast on our Torid. Pretty good stuff there. Now, the thing is, Power Strength is not going to scale Ashe's abilities the way you want to, really. Unfortunately, Smoke Shadow does not scale with Strength. Shuriken's not even used on this build. Teleport's not used on this build. And it's basically just going to be there to buff Nourish's viral percentage. So you don't really need that much Strength on here. That being said, what else are you going to mod for on Ashe? Seriously, what are you going to mod for on Ashe? We've got 254% duration, and we only have a 20-second invis, because his invis is very, very short duration. So for me, this is the stuff I like to run. Brief respite in case there is an issue. I can throw a Shuriken to get some shields back, or just cast Nourish to get some shields back. Shouldn't actually matter most of the time. We have big power strength on our Nourish, because it's the only ability that really needs strength. We've also got Rolling Guard to get some fire procs. We got a fire proc on us. Vigorous Swap, an extra level of damage you don't even need, but we threw it on here just because. But the big thing here is Arcane Crepuscular. While invisible, gain increased ability strength and also plus 3x final crit multiplier. That applies per crit tier. So when we are going above red crits, we're applying this like it's 12x extra crit damage basically at the end. Final crit damage. So that can be pretty powerful. Molt Augmented's on here. You could definitely take Molt Augmented off for whatever you want. You could do, if you're running the Torid like you are in this video, you could do Arcane Rage for increased primary damage. If you're using the dual tox, like my previous video, you could do Arcane Precision for increased pistol damage. You got whatever you want. I would not recommend Molt Efficiency. You might be like, okay, well, your duration's bad. Get Molt Efficiency. This gives you like 3 extra seconds of invis duration. It is not super worth it. But if you want extra 3 seconds of invisible duration every time you cast, feel free to try it out. But the big thing here, guys, is make sure you're invisible with Smoke Shadow Augment and just cast Nourish and you're good to go. As far as our Torid Incarnon for shredding all these enemies, we've got a very powerful setup for sure. But as far as the Incarnon perks, Final Fusillade, Swift Deliverance, and Survivor's Edge, giving hybrid stats. We could go max crit, but I kind of like to have some stats on here to make use of those green shards. Now, as far as the build, it is a Corrosive Blast with the Torid. If you don't have a Heat Riven, you could still replicate this build no problem. Just put a Heat mod in the same mod slot. You actually have more stats chance than me. But yeah, the Riven is double crit, heat, and minus corpus. Lets you fit on a good Corrosive Blast build relatively easily. Now, the big changes here, besides us modding for Blast now, is that you might notice there is no Galvanized Aptitude on here. Since we don't really need Aptitude with this new Spectral Serration mod, I decided to not put it on here. We got Hammer Shot on here instead for more crit damage, because we got so many crits. So the way that crit damage applies in Warframe, guys, if you have a 100% crit chance, you're guaranteed the crit. You're guaranteed to apply your crit multiplier. But once you go above 100%, you can reapply that crit multiplier. So if you look at our beam mode right here, with the Riven, 207% crit chance. A guaranteed double crit damage multiplier with a 7% chance to triple apply the crit damage multiplier. So once we stack things like Smoke Shadow or Adarza Cat, we could be getting guaranteed triple crit damage multiplier before, and we're not even applying Arcane Crepuscular here. So we have like a 50x crit damage multiplier, something hilarious like that, once we get red crits. And we can get actually above red crits to apply even more. But yeah, the main thing here is just make sure you got the elements you want on here for Corrosive and Blast. If you take off the heat mod, it becomes Corrosive Cold. Actually, no, you have to switch them around. But Corrosive Cold is a good modifier on here as well. But yeah, Corrosive Blast is pretty fun for sure. The big new mod here is Spectral Serration. While invisible, increased damage by 330%. So it's technically not going to be as much as Galvanized Aptitude in some situations. Like you get, 80% damage per stash proc on them once it's fully stacked. But this requires no kills. And honestly, to get that many stacks, you'd have to have 4 or 5 elements on them. So really easy with a Spectral Serration to just mow them down real fast. As far as your arcanes, I've got Primary Merciless on here. I find it to be the best, but you could definitely run Deadhead or Dexterity or whatever you feel like if you prefer that instead. But yeah, Merciless is definitely the most reliable, and the Torid does appreciate a little bit of reload speed to transform faster. So yeah, the big thing here is going to be that replacement of no Galvanized Aptitude. Now, as far as my weapon, I've got my secondary slot. You can run any weapon you want at all, guys, but the big thing I'd recommend to you is just make sure you have the Arcane Fortifier, secondary Fortifier on here. It will let you steal Overguard from enemies and let you have some Overguard like cushion to like not to worry about stats procs as much. Additionally, since we are having this thing out for like a brief second, you can have Magnetic Might to get some Magnetic procs and Overguarded enemies to make them be killed easier, I suppose. Now, you can run the Bronco Incarnon on Ash for a very hard-hitting weapon, but that's not really what this build video is about, but I can just quickly show you that as well if you'd like to see. As far as the perks on the Bronco Incarnon, we got Infused Shots, Kinetic Battle, and Rain of Lead. But if you're using the Bronco for DPS, use Commodore's Fortune instead for a much, much harder-hitting crit situation. And for our mobility stat stick, I've got the Okina Prime Incarnon, and I did use it to kill level 10,000s with this build. Yes, it's the Okina Prime Incarnon, not the Okina Normal Incarnon, because honestly, the Okina Prime Incarnon has a lot higher base stats, but the Okina Normal has a lot higher Riven stats. So honestly, for like normal Steel Path levels, the Okina Normal is probably better with the better Rivens, but for level 10,000, the base stats of the Okina Prime, I prefer at that level with that. So here we are with the Okina build, an electric melee influence setup, and we've got, don't forget, we've got Nourish as well, so it will be viral electric, not just electric. So pretty good stuff just to have a mobility stat stick at the end of the day. The big thing we're using here is going to be Swordsman Celerity, giving increased movement speed by 30%. And if we do end up using our Incarnon transformation here, we got increased sprint speed and parkour velocity too. Other perks are Alchemy of War and Seeing Red. We've got Matarai because if you're playing Void Cascade, you better have Matarai equipped. And for our companion, this is the Smita replacement for me right now. We got the Adarza Kavat. Now, this is an Adarza Vampire Cat hybrid, but it has the abilities of the Adarza. So as far as what we're doing here, we have some pretty specific stuff to make this work. You might notice too, like, why do you have Reinforced Bond in there with no actual Reinforced Bond, like 1200 shields? I'll show you that in a second. But this thing here, the Adarza ability, Cat's Eye, will give us increased crit chance by 60%. So we're getting basically 4% total crit chance once this applies, and we also have Smoke Shadow active too. So really good stuff there. The rest of the mods here just make it so it's not dying and to buff us as much as possible. So Tenacious Bond gives us increased crit damage. So again, just like Ash, we're getting crit chance and crit damage here from an item. You've also got Fire Rate from Reinforced Bond, which buffs our Torid to make it fire faster. We've also got Tech Assault to make the cat not die as often, and also Tech Enhance to make the crit buff last longer. But yeah, big thing, Resource Retriever and Fetch as well. Now, as far as why we are using these Reinforced Bond with not enough shields on it, I'm going to go ahead and show you right now. So, if you look at my cat right now, it has 945 shields. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to fire my Bronco. I'm going to swap. As you see over time, it will auto-reload the Bronco, and it's going to make it where my cat gets some overshield. Well, as long as the mods are actually working in the sim, that is. Okay, looks like the synth mod got unequipped at some... Oh, that's because I know why. I switched to the crit build because I want to show you guys that. Well, either way, if you're on the right build with eject magazine, this is how you can get your Reinforced Bond active. So you fire off your Bronco, or whatever gun you have, then you swap off of it, and it will auto-reload over time, giving your cat overshields. Now we have Reinforced Bond active for more fire rates, okay? So that's what you can do. Like, I'm just going to go ahead and show you the Bronco build if you do want to use a DPS Bronco on Ash, which I have done on previous videos too. But yeah, guys, the big thing here is just you have to do minimal effort to get these really, really good high-level kills. So that's the main thing about the build, easy mode on these enemies. So there's the non-Incarnon shot in the Bronco. As you see, the Bronco can red crit just like the Torid. Okay, enough of that, though. So yeah, as far as the Torid, guys, for Riven stats, I'd recommend crit chance and crit damage. If you're at low levels, you're going to kill them with like one tick of damage, honestly. This build is meant for like level 10,000s. That's why I had to have a level 10,000 gameplay in there. But yeah, it is definitely a nice little upgrade. As far as the big DPS upgrades we got here, it's going to be... The difference is going to be Arcane Crepuscular, Blast procs becoming good, because Blast procs used to be bad, Adarza Kavat now being more useful because it's not required to run Smita anymore. And not to mention, too, the enemy's armor has been nerfed since the original Zombie Ash video, too. So, honestly, I've got max armor strip on here. You could get away with just one green Tau Shard if you wanted. That being said, what would you rather run instead of a green Tau Shard? To me, maybe some, like, I guess more casting speed or more parkour velocity. But right now, I feel like I move really speedy. So, yeah, you guys let me know what you would rather run if you would prefer to take off one of those green Tau shards. Because for me, yeah, they die really fast, but there's times they die so fast that armor strip isn't needed to be fully removed. So, yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Seeking Shuriken is bad. And let me know what you guys would change on this. I mean, honestly, like I said, the previous video is still good to go. The Scourge, the Dual Tox, all that stuff's still good to go. But yeah, the Torid is what a lot of people want to use. And the Spectral Serration mod is also a big, big upgrade too. So yeah, good stuff. All right, guys. I got some plans tonight, so I won't be streaming, but I'll see you next time. Peace.